Hey everyone, this is Yami, your Latina next door. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I love decorating my home on a budget, and right now we are sharing the renovations of our current fixer-upper. So if you're into budget-friendly decor, make sure to subscribe to keep getting more inspiration. And in today's video, I am going to have a $5 Tree fall DIYs for you guys. So I hope you enjoy. For this first DIY, you're going to use this welcome fall sign from Dollar Tree, and you're going to need 4. A lot of you expressed that you can find the little legs that I used in the one that I did last year. So with this one, I am going to be using some items for the legs that you can find at your local Hobby Lobby all year round. Now what you're going to want to do is adhere these together, and I used the wood glue from Dollar Tree. It actually works pretty well. I used some clamps in order to hold them together while they dried. So after everything is held together, you're going to set it aside to dry. And for the legs, we're going to use these candle cups. You can find this in Hobby Lobby's wood crafts section. They are regularly $4.99, but you can use your 40% off coupon. It comes with 5, but you're only going to need 4. Then using my wood tint in the color walnut, I gave them a nice coat of stain. Then once your tray has completely dried and it's secure, you're going to take these little cubes from Dollar Tree's craft section, and you're going to make a little square out of 4 of them. This is going to be a little platform for your legs to sit a little bit lower on the tray so that you can see more of them. You can use wood glue, but hot glue works just fine. You're going to add them to the corners, and then you're going to add a little bit more hot glue to the top of the little candle cup, and you're going to add it on to that little square. And you're going to do this for all 4 corners. Wanted to paint the top a solid color, so I used some acrylic paint in the color Italian Sage, and I gave it 2 coats. Now the reason I used this color was because it had a little bit of a lip of green on the sides of each of the signs. Now if you've been to Dollar Tree, you know that these signs come in various colors, and you can match them to suit your color scheme. I made sure to wipe all the edges of any excess paint to give it a nice crisp look, and that was it for this DIY. Now this is what this little riser tray looks like by itself, but later in the video I'll show you how you can style it with more DIYs. Now for this next one, we're going to create a topiary, and I know you guys have seen my previous video where I share these smaller topiaries, but this one's much larger because we're going to start with this foam pumpkin as well as this little velvet pumpkin that you can find right now at Dollar Tree, and then a smaller third pumpkin. This one I had on hand, but Dollar Tree does have some like this in this size. Now for the base, you can use these terracotta pots. I know that Dollar Tree carries them in their garden section as well, or whatever you have on hand. You'll find that I actually use something different later on in the video, but this is totally fine. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the velvet from that middle pumpkin, and I know the velvet is really pretty, but it doesn't go with my color scheme. I just needed that size of pumpkin. Then I'm going to go to my large pumpkin, and I am going to use that blue Nantucket color that I love so much from the Home Decor chalk line, and I'm going to give it 1 full coat. This paint actually covers really well. I'll set that to dry, and then I'm going to take some of my handmade Modern Line acrylic paint. This can be found at Target, and I'm going to use the color Morning Mist. It's one of the colors that I used in my DIY fall wreath that was inspired by Kirkland's, and I'm going to use it to paint the middle pumpkin. And for my smallest pumpkin, I'm going to use vintage white for the very top one. Now it was already painted in vintage white, but it needed to be touched up, so I went ahead and did that. Alright, you guys have seen this grass skirt before. I've made several DIYs out of it, and I still had a little bit left, so I'm going to go ahead and use it for this one. Now I'm going to pull out some of those raffia pieces, and I'm going to cut them in about 2 to 2.5 inch pieces. This is what's going to fill in between the pumpkin layers, because when you put them on top of each other, they're actually going to have a few little gaps, and I want to fill them up with this little raffia. Now it's also going to give it a little bit more of a fall feel because it kind of resembles hay. So with a little bit of glue, I went ahead and adhered it to the center of the pumpkin. So basically, I just wanted them to stick out from underneath the top pumpkin. And then I added some of that lamb's ear. Again, I used some of this in my fall wreath. I wanted everything to coordinate this year, so I went ahead and added a few of those because I had some left over. Once everything was glued on, I added the second pumpkin, and then I proceeded to do the same thing with that one. After you have all your layers all the way you want them, you just add them on to your base, which you can glue on. The base that I ended up using for this was a little urn that I had actually transformed to look like a cement urn. Now I didn't glue it on for the purposes of this video because I'm going to show you a different option further on in the video. Now, I'm not sure if you remember this piece, but I created this back in spring. And for this DIY, I am going to reuse this portion minus the carrots. And this is great because we are reusing previous DIYs, so this is really budget friendly. The first thing we're going to use is just grab any pumpkin that would fit on the little pot. Now, I just had this on hand and I gave it again another coat of that blue Nantucket. Using a fan brush, I dry brushed some of that vintage white, and then I added a little bit more white on the creases to accentuate the pumpkin in those areas. Then while that dried, I added some more of those lamb's ear to the base of that little pot and some berries that I had previously painted. Then all I needed to do was add that little pumpkin, and this DIY was complete. Okay, so for this third DIY, we're going to be using this cute little Autumn Blessings sign from Dollar Tree, as well as this little pumpkin form that was left over from some Dollar Tree items from last year. I'm also going to be using a piece of leather that I had on hand. And the first thing we're going to do is sand off all that glitter from both the Friends and the Autumn Blessings sign. Now this is actually inspired from a piece that I saw online. I believe it was Kirkland's. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that little leather piece and I'm going to cut it down to fit over that little pumpkin form. Then after I cut that down to fit, I cut off the corners like you see here. In order to give it that stitching look without actually stitching the fabric, I decided to use my plaid wood burning kit, and it actually turned out pretty cool. It worked so great. I absolutely loved it. So then I went ahead and did all the stitching around the border, and then I had actually traced the word grateful on there just really lightly on the leather. That way I can see it as I traced it with my wood burning kit. And I think it actually turned out really nice. So after that was done, I went back to the little plaque and I applied 3 layers of that vintage white on the little sign. It will need 3 layers because it is a little bit darker than the color that I'm applying on. And then I added some more of that blue to the pumpkin form. Then I did something that I hadn't done before and I've been wanting to try it. I wanted it to look nice and rustic and aged. So I took some bronze and I created lines down the front of the little plaque, kind of giving it a barn wood effect. And then I took a spatula and using the 3 colors, that morning mist, that blue, and that bronze color, I just started scraping it along the front, kind of giving it like an old painted look. I set that aside to dry, and then I took that little plaque and adhered it to the pumpkin, and I had a little bit of a mishap, as you can see here. They do happen, folks. This one just happened to be caught on camera. I did remove all of that glue that you see on the bottom and touched up the pumpkin, so it was totally fine. I wanted to add that little push pin detail, so I took these are from Dollar Tree. I cut the little tip down to make it a little bit shorter and then added a little bit of hot glue to each of the ends and then inserted it into the leather. Now I used a hammer as well as a little bit of a towel so that whenever I hammered it down I didn't mess with the finish, and I just kind of secured it into the wood so it would stay put. And then all I needed to do was add the pumpkin onto that little frame, and this DIY was complete. And I love how this one came out. For the next DIY, you are going to need some of these little cat bowls. This is in the pet section of your local Dollar Tree. We're going to need 2. You're also going to need a clear bowl from the kitchen section. First thing you're going to want to do is remove all of the labels, and the best way to do this is with a hairdryer. Then with a combination of either E6000 or Gorilla Glue as well as some hot glue, you're going to adhere both bowls like this. After that's dry, you're going to take some white chalk paint. You guys have seen me do this technique before, you just haven't seen it on this piece in particular. Now what I'm doing here is using folk art in white Adirondack. And eventually we're going to be giving this a faux wood look. Now you're going to have to give this 2 full coats of chalk paint in order to cover up all of that pink. Make sure to get the top and the sides. Next, we're going to get Rust-Oleum's Chalked Age Glaze, and we are going to use a chip brush in order to apply it all over the chalk paint. And as you can see here, it's going to automatically give it that faux wood look. You're going to see those streaks automatically, and you're going to want to glide it around in long, smooth strokes. You can do this in 1 or more layers depending on how you wish for it to look. I only gave it 1 for mine. And again, do the top and the outside. Then once dry, I applied Home Decor's clear wax, gave it a thin coat, and wiped out the excess in order to seal it. Now, the final thing is to add your bowl. Now, this isn't necessarily just a fall DIY. You can use this all year long. I think it would be great with beads or maybe even your keys at the front door when you enter, or you can add nice candies and treats for the fall season. Now, you can glue this on to keep it permanent, or I am going to show you that you can actually use this as the base of your large topiary. And here you can see how you can style that cute little riser tray with some more DIYs. And I do have a tutorial for that cute little raffia pumpkin. I am loving how all these fall colors are coming together perfectly. So that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed these. Let me know in the comments below which one of these was your favorite. And if you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. I hope you guys are looking forward to the fall season as much as I am, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Until then, adios.